all the thoughts are important.
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
but what about this?
It's all the
you need to do
tabs.
this, and all the tabs are open.
With ADHD, you have less dopamine than a neurotypical person. And for me, just even learning that about myself, it just explains so much. And the addiction, the correlation with addiction, the correlation with mental health issues, the correlation with ADHDers ending up in prison, having a lower life expectancy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have a lower life expectancy.
Amy Weidner, founder and passionate neurodiversity advocate, shares the raw reality of ADHD and addiction.
Alcohol makes us depressed. Of course it does. I think a lot of ADHDers self-medicate on alcohol.
Mm-hmm. I've got a ladybird.
It's for Eunice.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah.
fuck. Oh.
Yeah. It just reminds me of her.
Does she like them? Or like...
No, so not necessarily. After she died, I obviously was very grief stricken, and I'm a little bit spiritual, I would say. And I knew that she would show up to me in some form. So randomly, I was living in Berlin, and randomly in my apartment, all these ladybirds just started appearing. And I was like, I knew it. Like, I knew she would just like come to me in some form. And
Yeah.
Do you want to know a funny story?
yeah.
There was a ladybird in here yesterday.
Really? Oh,
Amy. Oh, God. Keep it together. Keep it together.
you know what else? When I was in London recently, I was on the tube, and Eunice's stop is Elephant and Castle on the brown line? The Bakerloo? No?
Sounds right.
And I was like, oh, we're going to be coming through Elephant and Castle, and it just makes me feel a little bit funny because the only time I ever went to Elephant and Castle was with Eunice, or to see her family. And it was so weird because, like, the ladybird to me is like that she's here. It's either that or 11:11, which I'm sure you love.
Yes.
So when I see that, and I see it very often now, I know that she's kind of sending me signs or something. I know I sound like a wild lunatic. But when I was on the tube, there was a woman sat across from me, and she had loads of tattoos. And I was just kind of like in my own world, daydreaming. And then I was just kind of admiring her tattoos. And I was like, God, she's got some really cool tattoos. Oh my God, I'd love all of those. And then I'm going down the rabbit hole. I'm like, yeah, my mum would kill me if I had all those tattoos, but maybe someday I'll get them and whatever. And then I'm trying to distract myself from the fact that we're about to stop at Elephant and Castle. And as we pull in and the tube stops, my eyes are just suddenly drawn to her shoulder, and there's like a brand new tattoo. You know, the way you can see that it's like a new, because it's like very fresh. And it was a ladybird on her shoulder. And then she got up and left at Elephant and Castle, and I was like, and I just got like this overwhelming sensation of like, I just felt very moved. That's the only way I can describe it. I had like goosebumps, and I didn't feel upset. I just thought like, oh my God, like she's really with me. Like she's really here. She's really with me. And she's like sending me all these signs, and yeah.
What do the signs mean? Just that you're on the right path, maybe.
Yeah, it's so funny because especially with 11:11, when I'm thinking, so I've been like very deeply manifesting my business and trying to also convince myself that I deserve to be a business owner, that I deserve a successful business, that I deserve wealth. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge mindset shift, especially having grown up with undiagnosed ADHD, being absolutely shit in school, always just looking out the window and just like having no confidence in, to some degree, I suppose, my intelligence or something. I don't know, like it obviously kind of manifests within you in some way that you just don't feel good enough. And I've always done well in my career, and I have job hopped, and that's always been my decision to just be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm bored and I want to move on. But yeah, so I've been on this journey trying to really just shift my mindset into this place of like, okay, I am a founder. I am an entrepreneur. I am ready. I am able. And every time I have this moment of like, I don't know, I think about my business, or I have a question, and then somehow for some reason I see either the number 11 or I see 11:11. And I don't know, the other day I was getting the train and it was platform 11, and just like whenever it comes up, it feels like she's telling me I'm on the right path. And I feel like I can connect to her now in some way. And obviously I miss her so much from my life. And like anyone that's experienced grief, which a lot of people have, it's such a weird thing because you're like, I really miss that person in their physical form.
Yeah.
I really miss them responding to me and the stuff that they would say to me. And I miss like holding that person physically in my arms and giving them a hug, whatever. But having something like that, even if it's just complete nonsense, knowing that I have that and that I can, I don't know, just know that she's actually there somewhere in the hemisphere. I don't know. Sorry, not the hemisphere. Please edit that out. I sound like such an asshole.
No, in the environment.
In the atmosphere.
Yeah, in the
It's
air,
like she's in the atmosphere somewhere, somehow, in some parallel universe, kind of like, I don't know, minding me or protecting me, or I don't know. She's definitely protecting me.
And it's just random things, right? Like ladybirds are so random and they just show up and
Oh, so random. And one of my best friends lost her mum 2 weeks before I lost Eunice. And I said to her, we were both like going through our own grieving thing, and losing a parent is a whole other level of traumatizing, especially your mom. I don't know what that feels like, luckily, but I said to her, you know, I bet you, her mom's name is Helly, and I loved her mom so much. She was like everyone's mom. And I said to her, Helly will show up to you in some form, and it will be hard to explain, but you will see something, and it will probably be something to do with nature. And then she started seeing all these foxes, and there was just like randomly just foxes just appearing out the front, or she would wake up in the middle of the night and they'd be making noises or screeching or whatever foxes do. And she just, and I guess it's the brain as well, is, you know, we think about something and then we see it, and it's our brain wiring. It's kind of positioning ourselves somehow towards that thing. And of course it's like that, what is it, the something yellow card
association
theory
thing.
Yeah. And you, what's it called?
Searching for patterns.
Searching for patterns. Yeah. Or, you know, if I say Mini Cooper, I've been thinking about buying a Mini Cooper, and now all I see around Bristol is Mini Coopers, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about myself like cruising around, but it's like I see them everywhere now. It's just like this, becoming conscious of it.
Yeah, and can you imagine with ADHD and obsessions, we see things everywhere all the time, and we're low-key manifesting everything.
The hyper-focusing, the obsession. Let's talk about the obsession with food and a certain type of food. So I will fall in love with the type of food, and then I will eat it like every day, the same thing for like 2-3 weeks, and then I'll be like, oh my God, I just never want to see that again. But I get so obsessed with certain things and certain songs.
I can repeat, like at the moment I'm listening to Linkin Park's new song, Emptiness Machine, and I'll listen to it all and then I just replay it. It's so embarrassing. And then I listen to it all, and then I'll do this 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
It's wild. And then next week I'm going to be absolutely sick of it and never want to hear it again. So why do we do this to us?
But like, I remember my sister saying to me, like, why are you singing the same sentence in the same song over and over again? She was like, girl, I just need to give you some direct feedback. Stop singing the same song over and over again and the same sentence. You're not even singing the full song. You're just singing the same part of it.
Oh my God, I relate so much. Oh my God. I just got flashbacks of my sister like, shut up, when I was singing. I was trying to perfect one lyric, you know, like the tone in my bathroom. And can you imagine? And I was a teenager and I couldn't get it right. So I just got flashbacks of her just being like, shut up.
Oh my
like
God.
in the other room.
I know, but I'm like, it's just such a weird thing that we do. Not weird, but
for us, it makes sense.
Yeah. I'm like, if I fall in love with a song, I am obsessed with that song. Like, I just can't see beyond. I need to hear it over and over and over again. Like, do you know Iniko? They have this amazing song. And it's like, I'm from outer space. Anyway, it's like I keep singing that same line over and over again, but I keep forgetting the words. So I'm like, I'm from outer space. I got music, something revolution in my veins. And I'm like, I keep fucking up the words. I always get the words so wrong, but and I'm like, I've listened to this song. Last Spotify Wrapped, it was my number one song, but I still can't remember the words. And I'm like, I've listened to this like probably 2,000 times across 2023, but I still can't commit the words into my memory. I'm like, okay, it's like the rhythm, whatever. Anyway, it's definitely one of the quirks of having ADHD, the kind of, I don't know, like the obsession, the kind of constant, because you have this dopamine fix because you love this song, and then you're like, again.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It ties in with addiction so much. There's such a fine line with us being mildly obsessed with something and something so, like, for example, like you said, like a book or a song, etc., that doesn't harm you. And then there's being obsessed with drinking and sex and drugs, right?
Yeah.
And there's such a fine line. There's a quote actually from Dr. K, who we basically did research before like having this conversation with you, because we wanted to have like accurate information. And Dr. K, who's Healthy Gamer GG on YouTube, he was actually a guest on DOAC, and is he a neuroscientist?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
A psychiatrist, and he said a quote about why ADHD is linked with addiction, and it fits perfectly with this. And he said it's like walking on a tightrope with your attention.
Oh my God.
And I was just thinking about last night, because me and Amy went to an event last night, and I don't drink. Like, I have no alcohol in the house. I don't stock up on wine or anything. I make a conscious decision not to drink, because I am so impulsive with it. This is what's good about this episode. It's going to be our intrusive thoughts just in the mic. Very open. This is your brand, essentially, bold. Just to speak up and be yourself. But yeah, so last night when I went to a networking event, I just give in so easily, even though I can go drinking for weeks and weeks because I don't buy it and I'm not enticed by it in the supermarket. There's something about networking events and someone just handing you a Prosecco or a wine, and I'm just like, I don't even think about it. I just do it all night. Yeah. And then today, regretting it. Very hungover.
Yeah, I regret it today. But it's so interesting. My whole experience with alcohol has been a real roller coaster. And I've given it up for months on end and felt amazing. And I've really kind of examined my own relationship with it. And when I look back to my 20s, I'm just like, oh my God, I was wild. Like, I drank to get drunk. I didn't drink because I enjoyed alcohol or enjoyed the taste. I would go out, and it's interesting now that I'm learning a bit more about it, and I really want to like go down the rabbit hole with this because it's actually fascinating to... Now, I only got my diagnosis last November, I think. So a year ago. And I've only been really understanding myself in the last year, and to some extent, and I still don't really understand what this really means, but trying to unmask, which is basically just if I'm zoning out or I'm having a moment, just kind of allowing it to happen rather than trying to be normal in the situation and trying to appear... You know what I mean? It's like you're like, what I find actually very challenging is having a group conversation, which is something, again, I only learned in the last year. I always struggled, but I couldn't... When you don't have language on something, you can't explain it, which is why language is very important. And it's why, for me, getting the diagnosis was very important and learning about it. So I can be like, oh, when I'm having a conversation with you and someone else, I'm like this. And then I find that so hard and I become very uncomfortable. And it's fine, I can do it, but I'm just like, shit, I feel this is too much, like this and that, and going back and forth. And because I think with ADHD as well, especially when you're medicated, you hyper focus in on one thing. And so I can have the most amazing, and we did last night, like, I can have the most amazing conversation with one person, and I can almost feel their feelings and feel their emotions. And I love connecting with people, and I love that strength of mine, that I have a lot of empathy and I can connect with people very easily. But that comes with, like, the reason I can do that is because of this ability to hyper focus and almost like look into your soul, and my heart's open and we're connecting and I'm so zoned in and I can't hear anything else around me. But so context switching is the problem. So I'm so hyper-focused on you, and I'm listening to you, and I'm hearing you, and I'm like, my whole world around me doesn't exist. And then if there's someone else then, and they're like, oh yeah, and then this happened to me too. And that's like and then I'm like, oh Jesus, I have to now pull myself out of like the one-on-one, like almost funnel situation that I have with you. And then I'm like, oh, and then I'm kind of like, okay, I have to now listen to this person with their contribution. And it's this context switching that is actually very challenging. I find that with work, I'm only medicated since about 2-3 months ago. And it's been super helpful for me. It took me a long time to actually go on the meds because it's quite a serious medication. And I was very skeptical about anything that would affect my brain in any way, having been on antidepressants as well last year. And it's so helpful because I can get so much work done. And obviously I'm building my business, and hyper-focusing is such a great skill to be able to have now, and that I can actually sit down and do hours of work and just get it done. I'm super productive, whatever. But pulling myself out of that and actually context switching, so switching to another task, is very hard and very disruptive in my brain. And I sometimes do talks with companies about being neuro-inclusive. Now, I'm not an expert. I don't think I'm an expert, but I'm very passionate about inclusion as a whole. And because I've been a recruiter and I've worked in all these interesting different tech companies, I'm like, okay, I've seen some really great ways of how this is done, and I want to share that with other people and other businesses. And one of the tips, I always try and give very practical advice to people, especially business leaders. One of the tips is like, when you are dealing with someone, in general, we should just assume, let's say, that everyone is neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And rather than just saying to someone like, oh, can I grab you for a second? For someone who has ADHD, that's like completely thrown us off. But if you say, when you're done, can I have you for a minute? Just whenever you're done, like 20 minutes, whatever. And then we're like, oh yeah. And then we're able to go back into our task, finish what we're doing. But we have this reminder like, oh, I need to go and do that now. But it's rather than don't pull someone out of what they're doing, because the hyperfocus is so real and it's so important. Yeah. So that's
Agreed.
just one little tip.
Yeah, that's such a easy thing to do as a leader, right? And I totally relate. One of the topics I want to talk to you about today was actually remote working and how it's so inclusive, because like I just struggle so hard like with office mandatory days. I'm just going to be really honest, because fuck it, why not?
Yeah.
And like, just like you said, being in that creative mode and being so hyper focused. And then I hate pinging on Slack, on
God.
Teams, on LinkedIn, like just the constant diversion of attention. And then so there's that going on with your desk, with social media. Your phone is blowing up as well with like Slack, WhatsApp, your family, whatever, colleagues. So you're like, great, it's just constant distractions. I'm in an office as well, not my safe space, not my usual desk. And then this happens every day, of course. And then you're just like, okay, finally, 15 minutes, I'm finally doing what I'm supposed to do. And then someone comes up to you, you've got headphones in, and can I borrow you for a minute? Oh, it'll be quick. And then they're there for half an hour. And you're like, it took me so long.
Oh my God, I know.
To like refocus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because getting into the hyper-focus mode is very hard. And I think the difference between being medicated and not medicated, when I'm not medicated, getting into the hyper-focus mode is, Jesus Christ. I mean, I have to G myself up as if I'm about to run a marathon. I'm like, okay, coffee, hyper-focus music, laptop.
Yes.
Is my battery charged? My laptop? Where's my phone? And I'm like, am I comfortable? Okay, I need to go to the toilet. Or like something, you know, I'm like, I have to be physically and like my environment, everything, I have to be so comfortable and so ready. Whereas being medicated, you can jump much more quickly into the hyperfocus mode, because with ADHD, task initiation is really challenging, and our brains are driven by urgency. That's why a lot of us, and I don't want to generalize because every ADHD person is different, but for me anyway, it's like if I have a deadline and tomorrow is the deadline, I'm like doing everything pretty much the day before, because our brains really, really love that. We either want to be stimulated by something, so we're either really excited to do it, or else we need urgency, like a deadline. But yeah, it's the office environment is really interesting, because I personally love being around people and I get a lot of energy. I'm someone that actually loves being in the office. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. But like anything in this world, it's about choice. And I want the right to choose if I go into the office or not. So the fact that I don't have to do that and I'm remote, I have a co-working space, I can decide in the morning, I feel like I need to be around people today. And it's so good for me to be around people. Like, I get such vibes. Also, when you're remote and you have an argument or friction with your colleague or your manager or whatever, when you're around other people, it really dilutes the situation.
Yeah.
But when you're at home and you have friction with someone at work, if you live by yourself especially, it's like you're kind of ruminating on that thing. And it's much more exaggerated, or at least it feels that way.
Yeah.
Rather than if you're in the office and you're like, oh, my boss just sent me a really shitty Slack, but you know what? I'm hanging around with you guys and it's fine because I'm remembering, because I'm here around all of you, that there's more to life than this job or work. Like, but when you're at home and you're so zoned in on like what you're doing, it's very hard to actually have that realization, even though we know it. Consciously, unconsciously, we fully know that, but actually being able to kind of, I don't know, like tell your body that, because you're like stressed and you know it's a hard thing.
For me, it's like I'm obsessed with, my current obsession is, well, has been for 10 years, is work and being very goal oriented and just being very productive. So I also love people, like hence I go to networking events and stuff, because that's I know I wear like different hats, like productive hat or social hat. And I'm like, okay, today I'm wearing the social hat because it's a networking event. There's no agenda or anything. I'm just speaking to people.
Yes.
Whilst at work, I'm like, I need to be productive because I've got X, Y, Z. I'm actually a very organized person for an ADHD person, unmedicated as well. I don't know how, but I still leave some stuff I hate, like in a project, for example, last minute, and then I'll do the shit stuff at the end. So I'm kind of like that when I gear myself up to go to work. Like you, I have the ritual. I've got like, even with this podcast, I've got my iPad, my drink and everything. I went to the toilet, etc., powdered my face to look good, etc. I have the same ritual at work with the music and stuff. So I love my colleagues. Like, I like to be around people, but it is so distracting. And in the back of my head, I'm always like, I need to really do some stuff. Like, so
it's hard to be present.
Yeah, it's like this with ADHD. It's like what the meds do essentially is like they silence all the thoughts and then just helps you just pick one thought. Like, oh, okay, you've got that project, you need to really do it, and like pushes you to do it. Whilst if you're unmedicated, right, you have this as well. It's all the thoughts are important. It's like, well, what about this?
It's all the tabs.
You need to do this, and all the tabs are open in your brain. So that's what's tiring, battling with that. And then just social media as well, like the constant demands. Everything is urgent. Everything's urgent.
Everything's urgent, but it's not. Like, it's not. And that's what I always say about the corporate world. It's like, oh, this is like business critical. Nothing is business critical. Nothing is critical in the corporate world. Let's stop using the language from the hospitals. Like, one of my friends was a stroke doctor in one of the London hospitals at one point. She was the only doctor on call for a catchment area of, like, I think it was 1 million people. And I lived with her at the time, and I've never seen stress. Like, that gave me a whole different appreciation for, like, what stress actually means and what it looks like on people and what actually critical means. Like, if you're a stroke doctor and you have a stroke patient that has just come in, you, as a doctor, the pressure that's on you, you have seconds to decide that person's fate, and that's on you as a doctor to make that decision. Your brain has to be able, often they're very sleep deprived, like whatever. And I'm like, can we all just calm down about this urgency? Like, what is going on that everything is so urgent? And I, obviously I'm also building my own business, and I keep thinking, yes, there's certain things, of course, that are urgent and not critical. I don't like to use that language, but I also think we have to slow down and breathe and listen.
We're so sensitive to dopamine.
The dopamine chasing.
Anything that gives it to us, like for a non-neurodivergent person, is that how you say it? Non-neurotypical person. When they get a hit of dopamine, for example, they eat chocolate, they just go, oh, that's nice. For us, it's like, I love it more. That's just on it. That's just a real representation.
Well, with ADHD, you have less dopamine than a neurotypical person. And for me, just even learning that about myself, it just explains so much. Like in my 20s, going out getting wild, and like when I would have a few drinks, then I'd be like, yeah, like the dopamine, like
especially as a
wanted to get
teenager.
wild, and I just then didn't want the night to end. Yeah. Especially as a teenager. And like I feel so lucky that I never really got into drugs, like, because I think I grew up in a small town, and I think I was a little bit sheltered in that regard. But I feel so sorry for people today who have ADHD, like Gen Z or the younger generation. Drugs is such a big thing now. They're just normal. And of course, peer pressure is very real, which is also something I didn't think that I would ever fall victim to when I was younger. I was like, no, I make my own decisions. But of course you do what your peers do. Of course you do. It's so normal. We kind of like absorb the people around us. Like it's just the human condition. So the chasing the dopamine, the drugs, and the addiction, the correlation with addiction, the correlation with mental health issues, the correlation with ADHDers ending up in prison, having a lower life expectancy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have a lower life expectancy. Because of a number of different things. So mental health and anxiety, the correlation with that. So it could be like someone dies by suicide or whatnot. A lot of it is addiction as well, which is just so sad. And I know we spoke about Liam Payne, because I'm not even a One Direction fan. Like I didn't even know who Liam was, to be honest, as in I didn't know which person he was in the band until last week. I'm not into boy bands really. Like I'm not really into pop music. It just wasn't really my type of music. But when that happened, I was like, and then when I found out he had ADHD, it just hit so
different.
It just hits so different.
It's noted that nearly half of adults with ADHD struggle with substance use, often turning to alcohol or other substances as they temporarily increase dopamine levels, which can be especially appealing for those with ADHD. So you recently shared the post with Liam Payne's passing on TikTok, and it's gone viral. People are commenting and relating to it so much. Can you tell us, did that surprise you? What kind of insights did you get from like other people's comments and stories?
Like first of all, I'm not a One Direction fan, and as I said, I didn't even know which one Liam was until last week. Like I literally don't follow them. I don't really follow celebrities in general, but something about this situation with him landed with me, and I think a lot of other ADHDers, so intensely. Like it just hit home. And I think it's because obviously when it happened, I mean, again, like normally with something like that, if a celebrity dies, I'm like, oh, that's sad. Like I feel sorry for their family, and then I just move on with my life and I don't think about it again. But with Liam, it was kind of like I ended up going down a rabbit hole when I found out he had ADHD. I listened to the interview that Stephen Bartlett did with him, and I was like, oh my God, this guy is so like sweet. And I don't know, maybe he was a terrible boyfriend. I don't know any of that. But what I saw was just a kind, empathetic, young man who shot to fame at the age of 14 and who actually just couldn't cope with fame and with, not that he couldn't cope, who can cope with that? Like, who can cope with being locked in a hotel room? And he spoke about it on the interview, like locked in the hotel room with the minibar. Of course he's gonna self-medicate. Like if I do like a talk or I do something that is very intense and I'm speaking in front of a big group of people, I know that after that I kind of have this come down, and I have this real feeling of it's a really weird feeling in my brain. I'm sure you can relate to it. It's kind of, it's like kind of a calm down. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's also like I'm kind of a little bit on edge, but I'm excited, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like the adrenaline is still in my body. And then I'm thinking, like, if I've ever done like a big talk or anything like that, I have to, if it's online, I will go for a walk, or I might go to the gym, or I might meet up with some of my friends and go for dinner, because I need to kind of ride off that energy. And I'm like, imagine performing to like hundreds of thousands of people and then having to go back to your hotel room and just be on your own. And I think what's resonating with people is this feeling of aloneness and this loneliness that we have as ADHDers, even though people love us because we're often so empathetic. And I know I am so loved by my family, by my friends, and I know people love being around me, and I'm so happy about that. But there's times when I really feel alone, like just so alone, and that no one truly understands me, because I can't, my brain is just going in all these different directions. And there's this level of ADHD as well for a lot of people with this hypersensitivity to things and rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So the fact that Liam was like ridiculed online, tortured online, and then I'm like, if I had to see that with the brain that I have, I would absolutely probably end up with a drug or alcohol addiction, because it's so hard to see that about yourself all over the internet. And I'm just like, this poor boy was so alone and so like failed by his, like Simon Cowell and all these billionaires that are making money off people like Liam, who's just this vulnerable neurodivergent young boy from, where's he from? Wolverhampton or somewhere, like a small town in the UK. He's just like a normal boy. And I'm like, this is so sad. And it's really resonating with people because he's just so relatable and he's so normal and he's so nice, and now he's dead. And it's because of, very likely, I don't know the ins and outs, but it's because he was off his tits, basically. Like he was off his face, and whatever happened, we don't know. Maybe we will never know, maybe we'll never find out. But he was put in a room, like, and he was with alcohol and drugs, and you know, it's like this self-destructive behavior. And it's because you're escaping from the fame or from, and the thing is, you can be so loved by the world or by people on the outside, but like, who do you really have? And that's why having connections and having a community or even other ADHDers is so important, so that, I mean, we do it, we can just be like, oh my God, we can be so unmasked around each other and so free. And I remember I have this really lovely friend, in Lisbon. Her name's Emma. And when we first met up, we met through like a networking event. She's also running a business. She's also an ADHDer. And we went into the market in Lisbon, the Time Out Market. We met there, and it's really loud. And we both looked at each other and we were like, yeah, no, this isn't it. We don't want to be here. And like within seconds, we had just met. But within seconds, because we both had ADHD, we were both just like, yeah, let's not pretend that we want to be in this noisy environment. Let's just go to like a super quiet bar, have a conversation with each other. Like, we don't have to be here, because it's going to be really uncomfortable to try and focus on the conversation when we've just met and have all this noise in the background.
I relate so much. And I think it's so funny when like we're in conversation, for example, in a group. I get this all the time, especially at home, because me and my older sister are very similar, ADHD. My younger sister, I don't know if she's autistic. She thinks she's autistic. So when we talk, she can't keep up, and she's like, and then we say like, oh yeah, so this, and we're talking about something we referred like 20 minutes ago, and she's like, oh, we're talking about this then, like, and she's like keeping track of what we're talking about. She says it out loud, and it's so funny, but to us it makes sense. We're just going back and forth. It's like opening and closing the tabs and like, okay, done with this, oh, this is more interesting, let's talk about this. And it's just so funny when someone's not neurodivergent or is something else, and they just point that stuff out, and it makes you feel weird, but then you're like, oh, we're having a conversation, leave us alone.
That's so funny, because whenever I meet a lot, like, I don't know, there's just this kind of connection between ADHDs because of that, because we can really vibe together, and the tabs, as you said, are open and we're jumping in for a second, but then no, something more interesting has come up, so let me just quickly talk about that, and then but then it's like the ADHDer also just gets it, and you're just kind of following me, and you're like, oh yeah, that is really interesting, oh yeah, and you're not thinking that this is weird at all, that I've just jumped around 50 times in this like short conversation. But yeah, it's just a different energy, and that is why it's important, I think, for people like us to have each other and to have communities of people that actually understand us, and where we don't feel weird and where we don't feel stupid. Like, stupidity is a big thing, because in school, because of the way the school system is, like, I felt so stupid in school. I remember getting 6% in a maths test, and like, bless my parents, they were always really they were very encouraging of me. And they definitely made me feel like, look, it's not the end of the world if I'm getting 6% in maths. It's not ideal, and I realised that is such a privilege. And I'm so lucky that I had parents that were, encouraging like that, because in school, I just was like, I couldn't concentrate. Unless I was interested in the topic, I just couldn't concentrate. Like Irish, maths, I was absolutely awful. I was terrible. I was just looking out the window thinking, I wonder what I'm going to have for dinner. Or like, I wonder what those cows are doing, and do they know each other? Are they related? Do they like each other? Do they like being in the field? I wonder what grass tastes like. And I'm like going down the rabbit hole looking out at the cows, like completely zoned out in my hyperfocus mode, but on something completely different, because I don't care about learning Irish. I love my country, I love my language, but I don't want to learn it. Like, I'm just not, I'm not good at it. So then and I'm also thinking, I feel like with the way our brain is, you have to be doing something that is productive all the time. So I'm like, I'm never going to use Irish in my life, in my future career, I don't think, at least. Why am I learning it? I'm not going to use maths, probably. I say that now, and I'm trying to build a business. But, I have my calculator.
Yeah.
And I have
ChatGPT. Yeah, amen. Hey, we read each other's minds.
Google Gemini or something, I'm like, I can just, I have an accountant. He can do all that. So yeah, it's this thing of like, you feel like you have to be doing something that's leading to something else, or that's like adding to your brain or adding to your life. And I'm still like that. Like, I put a lot of pressure on myself to always be productive, always be learning. If I'm listening to something, that's why, again, and sometimes I do wish I am actually a bit more into reality TV now. I watch things like Love is Blind and all that stuff, because it's just such great escapism. And I'm like, what is this? And it's from a psychology point of view. I find it really interesting to see people on dates. I'm just like, this is so fascinating. Like, what is going on? How can you be just like pretending to be this person, and then in the real world, you're just an asshole, and you just like faked all of it. It blows my mind. So I watch that. But otherwise, I'm just always listening to podcasts, or listening to Audible, or there's always like a
stimulating
productivity element to it as well, which is annoying, because I just can't rest.
But that's what we need, actually. We need to detox to heal, because our dopamine is so sensitive that we feel like you said, we always need to learn something new, or listen to a podcast and listen to this guest, or hyper-focus on Love is Blind, or that's why I just totally relate with school. I'm sure so many other people do as well. That's what I love about you, Amy. You're so yourself, and you just say what's our intrusive thoughts, like, is this bad? Is this good? I used to always think daydreaming was bad, because I got told off for it all the time. In the car, my dad was like, oh, you're not going to be a good driver if you keep daydreaming. And I was like, I don't want to fucking drive. Leave me alone. And then at school, my teacher was like, Daisy, what's the answer to this question? I was like, I don't fucking know, because I don't care. But like, you just can't say that. And then just the system not understanding, or not, like you said, you need to treat everyone like they are neurodiverse, because how will you accept everyone if you don't accept it? Yeah.
I always say that you should picture the most vulnerable person imaginable. So whatever that looks like, maybe they're maybe disabled, maybe they're from a minority group, whatever that looks like, okay? They have all the things. Make your school and make your workplace accessible for the most vulnerable person, and then everyone will be happy, and then everyone will fit into that. Because if the person who is a black, gay, whatever, disabled person, whatever, they have all the intersections of all the different things, if they can't be here comfortably, then we have a problem. And if you think of that person in your mind, and you make the space accessible for that person, everyone else, just as a byproduct of that, everyone else just slots in very nicely and is probably much happier. You can be the most like straight-laced, whatever, like neurotypical, privileged, whatever person, but you will still, as that person, really appreciate an inclusive environment. I think, anyway, in my experience, I have a lot of privilege as well. I'm like, I really appreciate when a space is comfortable, and when I know that people around me are who are maybe, you know, have other obstacles in front of them, when they're looked after and they're happy. And there's a Glassdoor study that came out, I think it was 2022, that 75% of job seekers want to work for companies that care about diversity and inclusion. So like, people can be saying DE&I is dead, whatever. I don't like the language around diversity and inclusion. I don't love it. I think it's also been weaponized. I did a post about this yesterday. But I believe in equality, and I believe in we should all be given an equal chance regardless of what that looks like. We should also acknowledge each other's journeys, each other's struggles. The concept of privilege, and people get really upset by this word. I think a lot of people look at privilege as like, oh, I have it really easy. No one has it easy. Life is shit a lot of the time. Life is hard. No matter how rich and skinny and good looking and successful you are, life is really hard for everyone. But some people are coming to life with just this extra backpack of weight, which is whether they are black or they are disabled or they are queer or whatever that is.
ADHD.
Or they have ADHD, they're neurodivergent and they don't fit into the system. They just have that extra layer of weight on them. That is, you know, we're all on the journey together. We're all kind of dealing with this shit show of life. But, you know, not everyone is coming at it with the same experience. And I think we just really need to acknowledge that. And, you know, the school system, as you said, is not built for people who are neurodivergent. It's getting a lot better. And I know in Ireland, like, there's a lot of people have what is called an SNA, which is a special needs assistant and everything. But, you know, we're getting better. And I think we also have to celebrate a little bit the small wins with stuff like that. But like, to your point about daydreaming, that it's a bad thing. Like, look at you. You are so talented. You have an amazing podcast. You are such an amazing creator. And you're doing so well now. And it's like, if little Daisy could see you now, and you're daydreaming because we have to daydream because it's when we magic up our ideas.
Yeah.
And when we're thinking about like, and I don't do enough daydreaming anymore, actually.
Because you're living your dream life.
Yeah, but I'm so distracted by my work. When I go to a spin class, I daydream. And it's amazing. And I come up with my best ideas. I used to do a lot of running, and I was like super fit before. And when I would go on a run and I would listen to house music, and it would like get me in my zone, and then I'm like really getting deep into the hyper-focus mode. And I'm actually proactively now blocking out time in my calendar. And I'm not perfect at it at all, but it is things like going to a class where I can just like, you know, I'm on autopilot. I'm listening to the teacher, I'm listening to the coach, and I'm just like cycling, and then I can just get lost because I'm doing the exercise, I'm doing the class, but I'm getting lost in my own little world. And even though, yeah, it's chaotic, but it's kind of magical.
It's beautiful. It's one of the best things.
Yeah,
ever.
and it's creative.
It's
and
not bad, daydreaming.
Yeah, but like, we were ashamed about it in school.
Yeah.
Oh, Amy, you're not listening. Why are you never listening? All I ever got on school reports was, she has so much potential, but she just can't dedicate herself to learning. She can't focus. I'm like, because the curriculum is so fucking boring. You know what I mean? And like, I always was so interested in psychology. And I remember, because I obviously grew up in Ireland, and my cousins who are from Newcastle, they would be just choosing 3 subjects. And my cousin was studying like psychology and English. And I was like, Jesus Christ, if I could just pick a couple of subjects that I loved, like psychology, like English, I would have probably excelled, because I can just hyper focus on those 3 things. You know, like, we had to do 7 or 8 subjects and be good at all of them. I just was like, no, like, this is not working for my brain. But yeah, the other thing, there was daydreaming. What was the other thing? In school, they are really hyper fixated on our memory. And with ADHD, we have issues sometimes, some people, with your memory. So I have issues with my memory. I don't remember things very often. I write a lot of stuff down. It's important things I do remember, but I put everything in my calendar so that, and I am actually very organized, which is quite shocking. Some people might be like, that's absolutely not true, but I think I'm quite organized because I have to be, you know, running a business or whatever, to be successful. But the short-term memory thing, and I remember in school, we would be given like Irish poetry to learn. when it got to me, I was just like, I just don't know whether to just lean into and just be very open about the fact that I just cannot remember this. Or pretend and like have a note under the table and be reading from the note. Like, which one is it? Because I can't remember. I can't learn things off and remember. I bring notes everywhere. I have my iPad. Yes, often if I do a talk, I freestyle because I'm like, a big part of what I do is just trying to be authentic. So I don't even like that word, but just trying to be me. I'm just me. I'm just raw. I'm just bold. Like, that's me. And I want to just be very open about who I am and shoot from the hip a lot of the time. But this obsession with having to learn things off by heart, I'm like, can we just stop that? It's really unnecessary.
Mic drop. People are clapping, listening to this. I agree. You just, wow. It's like, I wonder how many people resonate, because when I listen to you, it's like, tick, yes, I went through that. Yes, that was my childhood. Yes, that's how I feel when I try and learn. Like, I'm learning my keynote at the moment, and I'm like, why am I learning it? I know if I forget one word, that's going to fuck up the entire thing. But my brain is like, learn it because it needs to be perfect, and you can't go on stage with cards because that looks stupid. And I have that school stuff.
Yeah,
it drilled into me still as an adult. So I feel like I'm learning a lot as well. Like, speaking to you, just like being authentic, and again, I fucking hate that word. It's been overused. Being me.
Being me.
That's better.
Being bold.
Yeah, being
bold, but being me. Like, I know the authentic word is so annoying, and everyone on LinkedIn is like, be authentic. It's like, first of all, can we just point out that you actually cannot be your authentic place in the workplace? I don't believe. And I've worked at some of the most inclusive, amazing, progressive companies. I worked at Twitter before it was X. Talk about inclusion. I mean, definitely I felt, out of all the places I've worked, that's probably where I felt my most, able to be myself the most. But in the modern workplace, there's this whole thing, bring your whole self to work. No, I don't know. We have to be careful with that language. Like, bring yourself and definitely be you. I hate people that are super corporate or super scripted. And I'm like, no, we're not vibing. Like, just be very real. Just talk to me like you would talk to, we don't need this corporate jargon. Like, I cannot with people that are very robotic like that. I'm like.
You zone out. Yeah. I'm
just like, I can't have this. I can't use this language. I can't have this type of fake conversation.
That's why we suffer with small talk.
Small talk is really hard. It's really hard.
I hate it.
Even though I'm so like, I love meeting new people, and I'm so kind of, I can just jump in, but I want to go to level 7.
That's so true, isn't it?
Yeah, but you have to have good people around you, like, and people that are real. Like, I struggle with, if someone puts on like a front or a face, and they're not, as a friend, they're not telling me the truth about, and I don't expect everyone to have to share their deepest vulnerabilities. Like, you don't have to do that either. Like, we should only share what we want to share and what we feel comfortable with. But I know that I'm very open with people, and I'm just like, very honest. I'm very raw about like stuff that I go through, because I also, a lot of people look at me and think I'm doing really well, and I get a lot of comments like, oh, you're doing so well on LinkedIn, oh my god, you're this, that and the other, and I'm like, guys, I'm a fucking mess. Like, I'm crying at least half the month, especially when I'm hormonal. I am not, like, I'm holding it together by a thread, and yes, I'm doing a lot, and I'm very productive, and I am doing well in a lot of ways, but I'm also just like a normal, struggling, sometimes feeling really lonely and really depressed ADHD woman who is just like going through all the motions. And I feel like I like being very open and honest about that, because I just want people to kind of relate and feel seen and feel like, oh yeah, me too. Like, I struggle with that too. And if she does it, then it's fine, because I don't know, I want to be relatable to people, because I hate this front that people put on that everything's perfect. It's not. Like, life is really hard. And, and I'm someone, we're in the 1%. We're in the top tier of people that are doing very well financially, whatever you want to call it. Like, there is people living really, really challenging lives. Every day they wake up and they're dealing with horror. And I'm like, okay, like, let's just be honest with each other. Let's just be real with each other. Let's connect. We are less connected than I think we have ever been as people. And obviously social media is a massive part of the problem, which is so ironic because it's designed to connect us and we're all in our phones. I saw these 2 young girls yesterday at the airport and my God, I just like was observing them again, like this brain of
hyper,
just taking it all in all the time. And there was this young girl and she's with her family and she's probably maybe like, I don't know, 17, 18. She's just like glued to her phone. And the whole time the family they're going on holidays, they're having the crack, they're like having the lols, they're laughing. And this young girl is just glued and she's missing out on life. And like I was reflecting back to, and again, like I was so lucky when we were kids, we would go on holidays sometimes. And it was like that, those are the memories I think about.
Yeah.
Holidays, being in the airport with my siblings and my parents and how excited you were as a child to just be going on this adventure and going on the plane and going to the pool. And it's like, that is life when you're a teenager, you're a child. And I'm like, you're just missing out on that because we're like addicted. I'm addicted to my phone.
Yeah, me too.
And it's a problem. And now I'm like, I'm on TikTok. I'm like,
oh
no,
God, game over.
It took me so long to go on TikTok. And now that I'm posting some videos, I'm like, I need to not be scrolling on this thing. The algorithm is very powerful on TikTok and it really lures you in.
Well, you worked for Twitter, right? And the people who design these systems, you see them leaving, like Google and Meta and stuff, like the designers, because they gamify it. It's like Instagram is a casino. You're literally swiping and then dopamine hit. Oh shit, that's a new thing. Nice. You're just always gambling.
Yeah.
And games, which people know I'm a gamer, and so is Jamie, my husband, as well. We are gamers, and oh my God, we'll sit next to each other all night and we're just playing the same game.
Yeah.
I was fighting a boss for 6 hours straight in Zelda. 6 hours because I kept losing, and then I was just obsessed with, I need to do it and I need to do it now. And it got to like midnight. 6 hours, Amy.
Oh my God,
I'm 31.
That's okay.
Yeah. So even games like this, GTA has the same thing. It's got the casino in there.
The Sims.
Sims is so bad.
Designing people's lives, just normal people. So weird.
It's like we're playing God. It's so bizarre, but it's so addictive.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But I had to stop playing PlayStation. Like, I think I was maybe a teenager. I was like, I actually can't do this. And me and my brother and his wife and one of his friends, we got into it like at the beginning of the year playing Crash Team Racing.
Oh God.
And we just got obsessed. Then I was like, okay, this needs to stop.
Yeah. But I feel like, it just draws us in. And I don't think those kind of companies understand how damaging it is for us. Because even like you said, the girl at the airport, we're so, particularly neurodiverse people, we're so afraid of just silence and being in your thoughts, even though it's the most beautiful thing, like you said, daydreaming and getting lost in it. It's amazing. But somehow we're also afraid of just like reflecting and not doing anything. And we're chasing that dopamine. That this bloody thing is my life. I feel like there's me. This upside down. Great. Yeah. There's me here. I feel like I'm two people. There's me here and then there's me here.
Yeah. But you know what's interesting about that? First of all, the social media companies know exactly what they're doing. This is all by design. And it's profit and it's money. And it's, there's this whole thing on, I can't remember the name of the guy, but there's some guy on LinkedIn who's really pushing for, he's an activist, let's say. He's basically trying to get this movement going so that Meta will remove the ability to see teenagers' followers.
Right.
Because what's happening is there's this group of hackers, not like as in the bad kind, scammers. And they are connecting with these teenagers on Instagram. They are having this sexy conversation, like send me a photo of you. And they're luring them in. These are like vulnerable young people, whatever. The young person sending a photo to this random person that they think has slid into their DMs. That's probably super attractive because they've stolen some models' photos from the internet. And as soon as they send the photo, the person then sends them a threat. Like, if you don't give me £500, if you don't transfer it in, I will share these photos with your entire follower list. I will expose you. There has been a number of suicides because of this. Yeah. And Mark Zuckerberg knows this is happening. These guys know what's going on. Social media is so powerful, but with power comes responsibility. And this is what I keep saying. I'm like, yeah, you can be a billionaire. That's great. It's not going to go into the grave with you. Like, what legacy are you leaving behind? What are you doing to humanity? Like, there is a massive problem, and we're addicted, and they know we're addicted, and they want us to be engaging. I worked at a social media app, like, and it was one of the good ones, but they want you to be on your phone engaging with the app because that makes the money. Like, honestly, it's all about money. It's all about power, and it's actually frightening. But the more we can talk about it, and especially for people who are neurodivergent, we are addicted to dopamine and Instagram. And I'm saying this, I am admitting this as myself. I am addicted to things like Instagram, LinkedIn, the little red dot. Again, it's all by design.
Yeah.
It's cheap dopamine. And I'm like, yes, I don't even care. You know what? People slide into my DMs, like my friends, whatever, people that follow me. I actually don't want the message because I don't want to reply because I don't have time. I love them. Maybe they're my friend, whatever. But I actually don't want you to message me potentially that day because I'm just busy. But I'm drawn into the dopamine. I'm like, oh, I have a message. The red dot is up. Who's messaged me? But then I'm like, oh, I don't actually want this. I'm not going to click in. Mostly I just don't click in because I don't want it to be on red because I'm like, I don't want to not reply to them. I don't want them to think, I don't want them to be offended that I haven't replied, but I can't engage. I also don't like texting. That's why I'm always leaving voice notes.
I love voice notes though. They're so much more personal. I feel like another addiction that people don't talk about. So people actually push away like alcoholism because they're like, I'm not an alcoholic. I only drink on Saturdays. And I'm like, yeah, but you drink like 20 drinks.
Yeah.
You know, and especially with ADHD or whatever, like if you're susceptible to it.
Yeah.
And then it's so funny because I remember I've thought about this as well. Like, why am I so pessimistic and depressed and stuff like that? And I never thought it was like the drinking side of it that like gives you such high. And then the next day you're like, but you just take it out of equation because you're like, I don't have a problem. My problem is ADHD. You know?
Wow, yeah.
And another issue I have, I'm going to admit it, is shopping. It's so embarrassing. Like the dopamine of scrolling through and being like, I want this, adding to basket.
I know.
It's all gamified as well.
Yeah.
Like even McDonald's, not the advert, the screen thing that you press is gamified. Yeah, the kiosk is gamified. So it's like, add a burger and the colours and like the tomato.
And then
the
you get it
burger.
and it's just this pathetic
It's
little...
disgusting. Like, and you're like, why did I order for 10 when it's just me and it all tastes like ass? Like, it's so bad. And then it's the same with, for me, clothes. And I feel like a lot of people have this too. So you order too much food, like with takeout. And then you order too many clothes. And like Amazon...
the one
my
click
God,
buy,
that's
Jesus.
my obsession. Yeah, one click buy, buy money, see you later. That's the impulsiveness, overspending. That's a really big issue with ADHD. And then the guy coming to your door, or woman, whoever is delivering, and it feels like, a gift for me, another hit of dopamine. And then you open it and you're like, it's a fucking pair of scissors. You're like, it's so underwhelming, but it's that chase.
So
it's that,
underwhelming. And then it's like this, you order it and it looks like amazing on the model and then you're like, oh my God, I look like Miss Trunchbull.
I had this with this dress. It looks amazing on the girl and I look like a tent.
You look gorgeous. You're such a sexy, spicy queen. Girl, stop that negative language about yourself. I won't allow it. Going back to the alcohol thing.
Yes.
Wow. Like, that is so real. And I remember speaking to a psychiatrist. I remember going to therapy and basically saying, when I drink, I feel super anxious the next day. And the therapist, who, by the way, speaks to people who are having mental health challenges, obviously all the time, that's his job. He was like, you're the first person that has ever spoken to me and connected the two, alcohol and anxiety and depression. And I was like, what? Do we not know this? Like, alcohol makes us depressed. Of course it does. Not everyone, not all the time. But it really affects our life negatively. And I think a lot of ADHDers self-medicate on alcohol because you're overstimulated. I did it last night. I was overstimulated. We're in a busy environment. I'm talking to a lot of people. I'm having to context switch. And I was like, I need a drink, but I don't need a drink. But I felt like I need a drink. And that's my demon and something that I'm really trying to work on. I don't drink like half as much as I did before. I don't drink even quarter as much as I did before because I'm so aware now of myself. I also have really struggled with my mental health in the last 3 years. I was on antidepressants for a year. I came off them. And I'm just very aware of like what makes me dislike myself, what makes me a bad version of myself. Alcohol makes me a bad version of myself. And it's the little things. It's waking up being hungover, making bad decisions about food, making bad decisions about work. My brain doesn't work properly if I'm hungover.
Yeah.
You know, like it's all these things, the sleep element, even if I have one drink, all of us, like alcohol is a stimulant.
Yeah.
And, you know, people are like, oh, I woke up in the middle of the night and I don't know why. And I'm like, well, did you have a drink? Even one drink. It affects how you perform at the gym, if you're training. The sleep thing, especially if you're neurodivergent, is such a big thing that we really underestimate the importance of our sleep. And I feel like I'm really rigid sometimes in things, but I'm obsessed with my sleep. Now, I'm not perfect at all. I scroll at the moment before I go to sleep, which I hate that I'm doing that. Like, I wish that I'm going to delete social media for a while. But I need like 7 or 8 hours a night.
Yeah.
And that's also why I'm like, I don't want to have kids. No, thank you. I don't think I do anyway. Because I can't imagine life living on a lack of sleep. And mostly women do all the work anyway, do a lot of the work when it comes to children. So it's like, I just don't want that for myself. Like, I don't want that lack of sleep. I don't want to have to do all the work. Like, you know, okay, there's a lot of situations where the dad is really leaning in, and that's amazing to find that. But statistically, women are doing the lion's share of the work. So it's kind of like, statistically, it's very likely that if I end up having children with someone, I am going to end up doing it all. Also running a business, I'm like, no, I really admire parents who have ADHD because I just don't know how they do it. I literally don't know how they do it. Also, not like, you know, and I'm an auntie and I love my niece and nephews and I look after them a lot and I believe I'm a very responsible auntie, but it's like just having this constant person that you have to focus on and keep alive. It's like
Keep alive.
Totally freaks me out. Yeah.
It is wild. And going back to the sleep thing, because I'm obsessed with sleep too. I think it's just, if I don't sleep 8, 9, 10 hours, I need a lot. Uninterrupted too. And I have cats, can you imagine? When they just jump on your head and you're like, the fuck?
No.
I was deep sleeping. So I've kind of analysed, I've been thinking a lot, because now I'm getting really good sleep, touch wood. Like super good, deep sleep with like no like eye mask, no loops, nothing, just natural sleep. And I think the key things were like when I was hating my job, like really did not like my job. I was like nearly burnt out, daydreaming, whatever, like just hated being there. I found myself in the night is when my mind is, everything is silent. And your brain is like, fuck, now I have to think about stuff. We have to talk. You know, the spirit and the brain have to talk.
Yes.
And you're just like in darkness, no stimulation. You're like, fuck. So I would overthink and I just think about fucking ideas and, oh, maybe this is my side hustle. This is my business. This is how I'm going to, you know, resign from my job or just random shit. Or I'd scroll because I'd be like, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
Let me go on my phone. And then that's not good. And then I'm on my phone till like 3 a.m. And sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night because I'm stressed. You have cortisol and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'll just go on my phone to like self-medicate, to just watch a funny video or stuff like that. And
get the hit.
That's just what I found the difference was with like being unhealthy and not channeling my hyperfocus to something important to me during the day. Like living my authentic self during the day and doing stuff I loved during the day.
Yes.
Because now I'm doing that, I sleep good. I'm making better decisions with food because it's not like I'm so stressed, I need a takeaway, I need chocolate. I'm like, no, I have time. I'm going to have a nice meal and it's going to be nicely portioned, not huge. So my incident spikes and then I can't fucking sleep when I'm trying to go to bed and I'm overthinking, I'm stimulated. So there's so many things that comes into play with like, if you're overwhelmed with ADHD, for example, and you feel like you're wasting your time at work or you're wasting your time at college or whatever, it's so important to find that hyper-focus thing that you like, that you keep daydreaming about, because that's what's going to make you sleep at night. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And
can I add something?
Of course, please.
Also, the constant scrolling on the phones is the constant dopamine, and you're just distracting yourself. You don't have time to emotionally process anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you are at night laying in bed, trying to get to sleep, that's when you're like consciously or subconsciously. That's when your brain is going through the day and reflecting on everything that's happened.
Yeah.
And you haven't given yourself the time to do that in the day if you've just been scrolling.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That is such a good point. And I was going to say, actually, you mentioned about, being alone with your thoughts. Like, my worst nightmare is if you put me in a room alone with nothing and I had to sit and think and be by myself. And I felt like that for my whole life. Like, I carry headphones with me everywhere. When I travel, and I do a lot of traveling, I have my headphones and I have my backup headphones, because God forbid that my headphones will break or run out of battery and I have to, like, I don't know, just like sit in the car and not have something stimulating me. And, a lot of people will say, especially, if you have any issues with your mental health or anxiety, people will say like, oh, have you tried meditation? I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I can't meditate. Like, I can meditate to music or to transcendental meditation is quite good because it's like a zzz and you're kind of following.
So much, yeah.
And it's amazing for the brain, and it almost feels like this kind of brain massage. But this concept of just sitting and breathing and
it freaks me out. I can hear my lungs. I can hear my head. Does that sound weird? I can hear my skull. Yeah. I don't know. I can hear my body, and I'm like, I don't know. That's not nice. I don't want to hear my bones.
But because I know, but we're so overthinking so much, and our brain is so active, and that's why as well, ADHD is very often not diagnosed in women as children, because the hyperactivity is in our head rather than, it's very, when people think of ADHD, they think of like a very bold little boy at school who's like very loud and boisterous and all these things. But for us, it was looking out the window, where it was just like this constant, which is why that we are also very creative. We're doing a lot of creative things. We're both creators. We both write content, create content, whatever. And we have a lot of different things happening at once. And I've always had, well, certainly for the last 5 years, I've had like a side hustle, because I just want to do different things outside of my job that I had. Like, I'm like, I want to be creative, and I want to be able to like share things with people and write cool articles and create interesting videos, whatever. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
This is a safe space.
This is a brave space.
It's a bold space.
This is a bold space.
It's an ADHD episode. People will understand.
Yeah. What were we talking about?
If you want people to take away one thing, for example, if they are just learning about neurodiversity, ADHD, is there something that we've missed that's quite important for people to know?
Something that has just been so powerful for me in my life is to look beyond someone's face and actions. So, for example, maybe you have a neurodivergent team member and they're really challenging for whatever reason. And often neurodivergent people will get put on performance plans because they're not like a culture fit, or they're maybe very rigid in the way they're thinking, or they're very direct. Maybe they're autistic and they are just, whatever it might be. I wish that people would look a bit more inwards at how can I make this person's life a little bit easier, or how can I connect with this person? So what I'm doing as a leader is not working. So let me try a different route. Let me do a different dance with this person and see them for who they are. Let me like connect with them on a human level and ask them, are you okay? Is there something happening in your life? Is there something that, like, is there any, what, tell me what I can do to help you or to support you as your leader, as your manager, whatever it might be. And the difference that different dance can do for that individual is profound, because there's things that to the leader, to the manager, whoever it is, the person that has, let's say, more power in the position, something that seems very tiny to that person. I'm telling you now that the neurodivergent person has been crying, probably. They've lost sleep. They've been ruminating. Their body is filled with cortisol and it's pumping through their body because they're so worried about something that you said, or they view you in a very powerful light, and the impact that you can have on that person is just so profound. So I don't know, like there's this expression, don't judge me on my first thought, judge me on my second thought. And our brain puts everyone in boxes. We're humans. We can only process 40 pieces of information at any given second, even though we're receiving 11 million pieces every second. So I, like everyone, have loads of biases, and I judge people very quickly, because we all do. And I would be lying if I said I didn't. But then I catch myself and I'm like, why did I judge? I had a guy sat next to me yesterday on the flight, and I was like, I just judged him. I can't even explain why I judged him. He just irritated me. And then I was like, no, I'm not having this, because I'm not like living. If I behave this way, then I'm not practicing what I preach. And it was just a tiny interaction, but like I turned to him and I asked him something. I can't even remember what I asked him. And I just smiled at him and I was like, oh, do you mind if I whatever? And he was like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, I was like, I've just like connected with this lovely boy that I judged for what, why? And I was like, that's every time I take my own advice, it works. Every time I look beyond what someone shows up like, or the way they act, or that they're playing a video game on their phone that to me is just stupid. But I'm like, no. That's not okay. This is a real person. I can't judge. Who am I to judge? I do stupid shit as well. I watch Love is Blind. You know? I watch shit on TV. I scroll on TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I have no right to judge someone else. So let me just see them for who they are as a person. See them for a person with a heart, you know, with feelings. And let's just connect like that.
That's the ADHD as well, isn't it? Relatability, sorry. Always putting yourself in people's shoes all the time. And I think like something relating to that as well, something I've learned about judgment, because I do exactly the same. How weird it's like you're in my brain. It's like every time I microjudge someone, like even like, oh, I don't know, they have forehead wrinkles. I'm like, I'm projecting. I always catch myself saying I'm projecting, because that's what it is. And I'm like, yeah, I always look at my forehead wrinkles. Yeah, stop it, Daisy. What are you doing? And I just do it because... And it's just stupid shit. And even if it's like someone sits next to me and I'm like, oh, they stink. I'm like, what am I projecting about? And I just catch myself, and it just helps you be such a mindful, conscious human being instead of a dick. Yeah. Yeah.
Just a mindful, conscious human. And to the point about projecting, like, if it's really interesting. My little brother, when we were growing up, we used to kill each other, and now we're like the best of friends. But he used to drive me insane. And from a very young age, I knew why he drove me insane, because we are so alike. And I saw so much of myself in him that I didn't like about myself. Just little things, but just annoying things. And then I would take them out on him. And I knew, like, even from such a young age, I was like, he's acting like me and it's pissing me off. Not because he's copying me, but because I hate that side of myself. And we often do that as people. We don't like someone because we see that part of ourselves that we don't like about ourselves in that person.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, let's just take a step back. Like, no, like you said, just catch yourself with these micro judgments. I love that. Yeah. Just like have a little bit of empathy.
That is a perfect way to end this episode. I feel like it's been 2 hours. I feel like I've known you forever as well.
Girl, I feel the same. We do.
It's amazing. I feel like we can end this episode in a different way as well. I'm going to give you a cuddle because, Amy, this has been amazing. Thank you so, so much. I'm going to put this screenshot here. Low-key manifested it because Amy doesn't respond to her messages. I had to share with you the very first message I sent you ages ago, a year ago, on LinkedIn saying like, so beggy, like, Amy, I love what you're doing. I'd love to have you on the podcast. And then boom, Ed. But you never saw it. You never saw it.
I ghosted you. I left you on red. Girl.
You didn't because you came.
I'm so
Full
sorry.
circle.
And what an honor to be in your podcast. Like, I would have loved that. But I just, especially LinkedIn, I just have to say, because I know that I ignore a lot of people, I just get overwhelmed with my LinkedIn messages. I am going to get a virtual assistant they will help me, and they will help me reply to the messages that I get. So I'm really sorry if I've left anyone on red. That is so not my intention. I would never want to hurt anyone's feelings, especially not yours.
Give me a cuddle.
Girl.
Oh, it was hard getting off the chair, wasn't it? Oh, bless you.